Well, I feel like before we lose steam, my channel is mostly about salvia, so maybe we should talk about growing and talk about salvia a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. I've been growing salvia for quite a few years, and I wouldn't consider myself an expert, but I try to maintain the health of the plants and give the best specimens that I possibly can. And it does have it's difficult to continuously propagate them and keep them happy at the same time. They're very finicky plants, and any changes in that plant, any stressors, they freak out. They freak out
Yeah.
pretty easily. And I think that's why it's rare to find them offered up as plants. It's just so hard to maintain numbers.
Oh, so you mean it's
But
literally a more difficult one to grow?
yeah, salvia is finicky.
Mm,
It's finicky plant. It likes to stay in the same soil wetness, the same humidity, the same temperature that it's growing in. When it's happy, it's happy. And if you change it at all, it freaks out. They freak out. They turn yellow. The leaves get crispy. It's difficult to maintain it.
mm.
But I would say the the best advice I can give on salvia would be when you receive your plant, baby it initially, put it in ideal conditions, keep the humidity high, but do not sacrifice fresh air for high humidity. You so when you first receive the plant, you want the humidity to be high, but you also want to provide it with as much fresh air as possible. So if that means that you've got it underneath a humidity dome or you have a bag over on top of it, air it out at least twice a day
Oh, wow.
and and then continue to increase the amount of fresh air that it gets until you're able to just leave it out in its ambient environment. And even going slow, you still might lose the leaves that it initially started with because those leaves are not adapted to the new environment. But the new leaves that grow in, they're adapted to the present environment that they are growing in. So it's very, very slowly, go slow,
Mm.
at least a week.
Oh, that initial. Yeah, yeah, that's what I did. I think that so I bought one from you, I forget, a month or two ago. And it came with all these detailed directions about putting it in a dome and adding a hole, I think, once a day
Yeah,
in the dome and airing it out once in a while.
slowly decreasing the overall humidity, the ambient humidity, or not the ambient, the overall humidity in the bag until it reaches ambient humidity.
Yeah. Where my environment is, it's in my house in Western Oregon, so thankfully that's pretty um not terrible. The humidity is about 60%,
That's
and
beautiful.
then it's indoor temperatures.
Yep, that's perfect. Yeah, you're in like a little Goldilocks zone there.
Oh, good. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, they're not going outdoors in Arizona.
I tried.
Yeah.
I tried. They didn't like it. But yeah, so it's strictly indoors here, the salvia plants. And I've had really good luck with hydroponics for the
Oh, really?
salvia. Yeah, it seems like the the availability of water really helps counteract the low humidity here. And I've noticed if I don't have them in hydroponics and I have them in pots, if I don't re repot the salvia plants, once the roots reach outside of that pot and they can't sequester water as quickly, they really suffer from the low humidity.
Oh, okay. So they can compensate for humidity by taking in more water.
Yeah. So if you live in a low humidity environment, I suggest that you frequently repot your salvia plant so the roots aren't at the edge of the pot, or put it in a hydroponic system.
Hmm.
Trying to think of any other special things I do for salvia besides repotting and hydroponics, and then
How does it
babying it.
how does it work as far as, because they're all clones?
Yes.
But I've heard of strains. Is that a thing?
I've heard of them too, but I only grow one variety, and it works, and I didn't see any reason to grow others. I don't know. I've never looked into the other varieties, but I do know that they exist, and I have seen on Reddit that there are people that have found seeds to be viable and that they are growing them from seed. So there may be some really cool stuff in the future as far as varieties go.
Oh, well, that would be fun.
Yeah, it would be neat. Maybe someone could come across one that is less finicky than what we've got our hands on now, or more potent, bigger leaves, faster growing. They do
Hmm.
grow pretty fast once they catch on, though.
Do
Once
they?
you, yeah, once you let that plant get big, it just grows pretty dang fast once it gets up there in size. You just got to be careful about harvesting. I would recommend not harvesting more than 2/3 of the plant, ideally less than half at a time. Because again, they they're drama queens. They stress out easy.
Yeah.
It'll if you harvest a lot more, it'll slow it way down.
Yeah, and I imagine I've never made extract, but it must take a it makes take quite a few leaves to make very much extract.
It can take quite a few leaves to just have leaf in general.
That's what I thought.
So for clone production purposes, I have I think it's a 3x3 flood table, and if I let them all get about a foot tall before I cut them down for more clones and stuff, I'd probably get maybe a little bit over an ounce of leaves off of that.
Mm,
So if you go on my website and you look for the dry leaf, I'm usually out of stock, or I've only got like a half ounce or something like that available. And that's because I don't buy it from somebody and then resell it.
yeah, yeah,
It's stuff that I've grown myself.
yeah. Cool. Have you ever looked into extraction?
Yeah, I have. I've looked into it. It seems pretty straightforward. You could do an ethanol extraction, and then you just evaporate that onto the leaves.
That's what I understand. Yeah.
There are different, there's more complicated stuff too. You can extract the salvinorin A, and that seemed like a pretty straightforward procedure too, if I remember right, but I personally don't see a purpose in messing with it. And I tend to shy away from providing people with anything that's too like crazy. You know, like pure salvinorin A, I just don't think anybody needs it. And I like giving out plain leaf because I feel like the people who are responsible enough to handle extracted salvia strengths are the ones that are going to be making their own stuff. They're going to be more dedicated to it. And I would just not rather willy-nilly provide somebody with a 20x or a 50x or pure salvinorin A. I would rather not.
Yeah, I respect that. I tend to well, extracts is all I smoke, but 10x, 20x, and perfect world, I would like the a max. I mean, we're not going to have a perfect world, and we don't get to just make up our own policies, but Um, like something like a 20x max seems to me like respond reasonably. Even that is so strong that it's hard to dose.
Mm,
And even a 10x is so strong. You have to be careful about dosing, and a lot of people make mistakes and fuck themselves up with it.
yeah,
You see
I've
10,
seen
100x, dude, come on.
yeah, I've seen somebody do 80x before, and that wasn't fun to watch.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those classic YouTube um uh overreaction things, you know? And it blows my mind that people think that that's the the goal, the response that you're looking for is to bug out and run around the room and think you're dying.
Yeah, I'm becoming a little bit less judgmental, you might say, about higher doses because I've ran into people recently that seemed like responsible people who knew that they were doing that really liked high salvia doses. Just like with the other psychedelics, I'm a little bit more open to higher doses. But personally, it's like low to medium is pretty much what I like to use, and I do it all the time, and what I encourage or help other people do too. Although, like
Yeah,
I said, there are folks that are really attracted to do it. You just have to understand that getting really high on salvia isn't just about seeing a few things. It's about like reality really fundamentally deconstructing, and you might not like it.
yeah, absolutely.